The sun over Ouagadougou burned like molten gold, fierce and merciless. The crowd gathered in Revolution Square shifted anxiously under the weight of the moment. Flags of Burkina Faso fluttered in a restless wind that could not cool the searing tension. Soldiers lined the perimeter, rifles held rigid, scanning the faces of civilians for any sign of unrest. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. At the center of it all stood Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Dressed in his signature camouflage uniform, his beret tilted at a defiant angle, the young leader stood calm and composed despite the pressure crackling around him like static. His eyes, sharp, patient, unblinking, swept over the crowd, taking in the faces of those he had sworn to protect and lead. The people had come to see their president. But many had also come to judge. For weeks, rumors had spread like wildfire through back-alley whispers and encrypted messages. Accusations of betrayal. Internal plots. Foreign interference. Even some within his own inner circle had begun to shift uncomfortably, wondering if the young captain had finally overstepped. "Sir," whispered Commander Ouattara at his side, sweat beading on his dark brow, "we shouldn't have agreed to this open gathering. It's too dangerous. Intelligence suggests unusual activity." Ibrahim did not look away from the crowd. "The people must see that I do not hide," he replied evenly. "If I disappear into bunkers like the old regimes, I am no better than them." A hush fell. From the far end of the square, a small group pushed forward. Cameras clicked. News drones hovered like predatory insects. And then, a figure emerged. Tall. Dressed in traditional Faso Dan Fani cloth. Face hard as stone. It was Seko Zongo, once one of Traoré's most trusted advisors, now the loudest voice of the opposition. Zongo had been an ally in the early days of the revolution, but something had shifted. Greed? Fear? Foreign bribes? No one knew, but the betrayal had been sudden and devastating. Zongo walked toward Ibrahim with measured steps, the crowd parting like water around him. The silence deepened into something darker. An expectation. "Ibrahim." Zongo's voice rang out, cold and full of venom. "You claim to be for the people, yet you rule like a king. We fought for freedom, not to replace one master with another." Murmurs surged like waves through the crowd. Ibrahim remained unmoved, though he could feel the weight of countless eyes boring into him. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Zongo stepped closer, face inches away from Ibrahim's. "You betrayed the revolution," he spat. "You betrayed me." And then it happened. With a swift, shocking motion, Zongo raised his hand and slapped Ibrahim across the face. The sound echoed across the square like a gunshot. Gasps filled the air. Soldiers flinched, hands instinctively gripping weapons. Commander Ouattara surged forward, but Ibrahim's subtle hand halted him mid-step. A single crimson welt formed on Ibrahim's cheek. Slowly, deliberately, he straightened his shoulders. His eyes locked onto Zongo's with an intensity that froze the older man in place. Then, Ibrahim did the unthinkable. He smiled. Not a grin of mockery. Not a smirk of arrogance. A calm, steady, almost sad smile. The kind of smile that understood the cost of leadership and the cruelty of betrayal. "I forgive you, Seko," he said quietly, but every word carried weight like iron. "You have not humiliated me. You have revealed yourself." The crowd froze. No one breathed. Ibrahim turned slowly to address the people directly, voice clear and unwavering. "I will not strike my brother in front of my people. We are not beasts. We are Burkinabe. We lead with dignity. And I will not allow foreign powers, nor internal cowards, to fracture what we have built together." The murmur returned, this time growing into an approving roar. Some citizens raised their fists in salute. A chant began to ripple out. "Ibrahim! Ibrahim! Ibrahim!" Zongo stood frozen, his face draining of color as the tide of public opinion turned against him. But even as Ibrahim stood tall, his heart knew the storm had only begun. This was not an isolated act of defiance. It was a signal. The enemy was within the gates. And he had just been slapped by the first of many knives cloaked as friends. The smile remained as Ibrahim stared past the crowd toward the horizon, where darker battles awaited. Night fell over Ouagadougou like a velvet curtain, smothering the heat of the day but not the unease. In the presidential compound, security had doubled. Armed shadows moved along the high perimeter walls, every corner watched, every approach locked down. Yet the greatest danger was already inside. Ibrahim Traoré stood in the dark of his office, staring out at the city lights. The slap still burned faintly on his cheek, but it was not the sting of skin he felt, it was the deeper wound of betrayal. Behind him, Commander Ouattara spoke in a low growl. "We should have arrested Zongo right there. Public assault on the president? Treason by any other name." Ibrahim's voice was calm but steel-hard. "Then he would be a martyr. They would say I fear opposition. That I silence critics like the tyrants before me. You gave him mercy. He gave you a message," Ouattara snapped. "They are testing you, Ibrahim. There will be more." The office door burst open. An aide, breathless and pale, stumbled in. "Sir! Urgent communiqué from the Intelligence Directorate. You must see this." Ibrahim took the sealed file, sliced it open with a flick of his blade, and read. His eyes narrowed. It was worse than he had imagined. A coalition of former regime loyalists, foreign-backed mercenaries, and disloyal officers were planning a coordinated coup. The slap had been a signal to activate their network. Multiple simultaneous strikes. The presidential compound, the military command center, the state television station. The attack would come at dawn. Ibrahim exhaled slowly. The weight of history pressed on his shoulders. He had gambled everything on transparency, on walking among his people. Now his enemies mistook his mercy for weakness. Ouattara stepped forward. "We move tonight. Round up everyone on this list. Seal the city. Execute if we must." "No," Ibrahim turned, voice sharp as a blade. "We do not become monsters to fight monsters. I will face them with truth. We expose them, not disappear them." "You'll be killed," Ouattara whispered, incredulous. "You won't even make it to dawn." Ibrahim walked slowly to his battered wooden desk, the same one used by Sankara decades before. His fingers traced the worn surface. Then he pressed a hidden latch underneath. With a soft click, a false bottom slid open, revealing a simple, unmarked phone. The last line. The emergency call. Not to the army. Not to the politicians. To a different kind of protector. "I swore I would never use this," Ibrahim murmured. "Not unless Burkina Faso itself stood on the knife's edge." He picked up the phone and dialed a secure frequency. 1 ring. 2. Then a voice answered, smooth, professional, cold. "Shadow Group. Authenticate." Ibrahim's reply was grim. "Code Black. Initiate Operation Sentinel." There was a pause. Then, confirmed. The line went dead. Ouattara stared at him, horrified and awed. "You called them?" "I did," Ibrahim said. "We will not slaughter our own people. But we will defend this nation with ghosts if we must." Far across the capital, cell phones vibrated silently in pockets. Shadow operatives, once soldiers, once patriots in exile, now hidden guardians, activated at last. As the clock ticked toward midnight, the city of Ouagadougou slept, unaware of the invisible war about to explode at sunrise. And in the darkness of his office, Ibrahim sat alone. His silhouette framed against the glass, the weight of an entire nation pressing down on him. His only comfort was the smallest, most defiant smile. Let them come, he thought. Let them see what happens when they mistake calm for surrender. The first explosion shattered the stillness at exactly 4:17 a.m. A deep, bone-shaking tum rolled across the city as the gates of the military command center blew inward. Alarms wailed, dogs barked, and the once quiet streets erupted into chaos. From his command post inside the presidential compound, Ibrahim stood straight as reports poured in. Attack confirmed at Camp Sangol Lamazana, Ouattara barked, phone pressed to his ear. State TV building under siege. Rogue elements in the gendarmerie have defected. Sir, this is it. Ibrahim stared at the large map illuminated on the wall, tiny red lights blinking where loyalist forces were being pushed back. His nation was fracturing before his eyes. I need eyes on the palace grounds. Are we secure? He asked. A comms officer responded nervously, so far, yes, Captain. But satellite feeds show 4 armed convoys closing in from different approaches. Ibrahim nodded slowly. They were surrounding him like wolves. Seko Zongo had gambled everything. Once they removed Ibrahim, the entire fragile revolution would collapse. A cold voice crackled in Ibrahim's private earpiece. Sentinel-1 reporting. Targets have initiated Phase 2. Request permission to engage. Ibrahim took a breath. The moment had come. Engage. Non-lethal where possible. Protect the civilians. Capture leaders alive if you can. Burkina Faso does not kill its own unless left no choice. Outside, black unmarked vehicles emerged silently from alleyways and side streets. Shadow group operatives, dressed in matte black combat suits with no insignia, slipped like ghosts through the city. At the state TV building, coup soldiers dragged journalists at gunpoint. A young anchor sobbed as they pointed an AK-47 at her head. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The gunman froze. A faint hissing sound, then gas flooded the room. Within seconds, they dropped silently, unconscious. The anchor stared wide-eyed as figures in black swept through, binding the attackers with zip ties. Across the city, the same silent strikes played out. Trucks were hijacked mid-motion. Weapons caches disappeared. Mercenaries vanished from rooftops. But the final and most dangerous group still advanced toward the presidential palace. They were the Red Jackals, foreign mercenaries hired by Zongo himself, hardened killers, ex-special forces, loyal only to money. At 5:02 a.m., the palace floodlights snapped on. From the north gate, the Red Jackals came into view, armored pickups, mounted machine guns, masked gunmen bristling with weapons. Ibrahim walked calmly into the courtyard. Behind him, Commander Ouattara whispered hoarsely, "Sir, you cannot be serious. They'll kill you." Ibrahim only smiled faintly, the same enigmatic smile he had worn after the slap. Not yet. He stepped forward into the dawn mist, his silhouette sharp against the gray sky. The convoy screeched to a halt. A single mercenary stepped down, face hidden behind a tactical mask. His voice was mechanical through a modulator. "Stand down, President. You've lost. We have orders." Ibrahim did not flinch. "And who will you serve after I am dead?" "The man who betrayed his country for foreign gold." Silence. The leader hesitated. Even mercenaries understand the weight of history. Then came the sound none of them expected, soft metallic clinks as figures emerged from the darkness behind the walls. Dozens of sentinel operatives, rifles trained, motionless. The Red Jackals were outnumbered and surrounded. The leader slowly lowered his weapon. "We were told there would be no resistance." Ibrahim stepped closer, eyes like flint. "You were lied to. My people stand when others run. You have one chance. Leave or join Zongo in chains." The leader hesitated for only a heartbeat. Then he signaled his men to drop their weapons. One by one, rifles clattered to the ground. Inside the command center, Ouattara slumped into a chair, exhaling hard. My God, he did it. They surrendered. The immediate coup had failed. But Ibrahim knew this was only the first round. The serpent had many heads. The true puppet masters had not yet shown themselves. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the dust-choked sky, Ibrahim Traoré stood quietly in the courtyard, watching the captured mercenaries led away. His voice was low but resolute. "This is not over." The city awoke to a strange calm. Coup rumors raced through the markets and cafes like wildfire, but the streets remained eerily quiet. The people of Burkina Faso had seen chaos before. They waited. They watched. Inside the presidential compound, Ibrahim stood at the war table, flanked by Commander Ouattara and key loyalists. Satellite images, intercepted communications, and reports filled the room. But something wasn't right. "We stopped the mercenaries," Ouattara said, tapping the map. "We stopped the armed defectors. All major leaders have been detained. The city is secure." Ibrahim stared hard at the table. It was too easy. A knock interrupted them. The heavy doors opened to reveal Mahamadou Traoré, Ibrahim's personal chief of intelligence. His face was gray. His hands trembled slightly as he held out a single sheet of encrypted paper. "Sir, you need to see this." Ibrahim read. His expression hardened. It wasn't over. It had never been just about force. The real betrayal had come from where it hurt most. "The National Bank," Ibrahim whispered. "The accounts have been emptied. Every reserve. Gone." A stunned silence fell across the room. Billions of CFA francs. The financial lifeblood of the nation had been siphoned away during the chaos, funneled through a labyrinth of offshore accounts. The attack had been a feint. The slap, the mercenaries, the arrests, all smoke and mirrors. They hadn't wanted to kill Ibrahim. They had wanted to cripple him. Without reserves, the government would collapse in weeks. Salaries unpaid. Food subsidies gone. No funds for fuel or medicine. The revolution would die from within. Ibrahim closed his eyes briefly. "Who?" Mahamadou hesitated. "Sir, it's someone close. Very close." The codes could only have come from the presidential finance team. A single name hovered unspoken in the air. Amadou Diallo. Ibrahim's longest-serving friend. His brother-in-arms from the earliest days of the uprising. Diallo had been there when they had taken back Ouagadougou, when the people had cheered their victory in the streets. He had wept beside Ibrahim when comrades had been lost. "Impossible," Ouattara said softly. "Amadou would never." "He did," Ibrahim said, voice low and heavy. "The betrayal cuts deepest from those we trust most." A second report followed. Intelligence agents had traced Diallo's exit. He had slipped away hours before the coup attempt. His destination, a private airstrip in the north. Waiting for him, a jet registered under an anonymous European shell company. Once airborne, he would vanish forever. Ibrahim stood in silence. The room waited for his decision. Ouattara stepped forward, eyes hard. "We scramble fighters. Shoot the jet down. He cannot leave with that money." Ibrahim said nothing for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked mercilessly. Finally, he shook his head. "No." The room exploded. "What?" "Sir, you cannot be serious. He will destroy everything we built." Ibrahim raised his hand and the room fell silent. "If we kill him, we prove everything our enemies say about us. That we are no better than the tyrants. No. We will capture him alive." Ouattara stared at him, disbelieving. "How?" Ibrahim tapped the emergency line. The voice on the other end answered instantly. "Sentinel Group. Target, Amadou Diallo. Airstrip North Sector. Intercept before takeoff. Priority, alive." The cold voice confirmed. "Understood. Extraction team en route." The jet engines roared in the distant desert. Amadou Diallo walked toward his escape, the stolen wealth of a nation waiting aboard. Unseen eyes tracked his every move. Shadows moved through the dust. The hunt had begun. Ibrahim stared into the dawn, face unreadable. Once again, the nation held its breath. The man who had been slapped, humiliated, and betrayed now gambled everything on mercy over vengeance. The next hours would decide whether Burkina Faso lived or fell into ruin. The sun bled across the desert horizon, staining the sky crimson and gold. Wind whipped fine dust across the small, secluded airstrip. A single sleek private jet waited, engines idling impatiently. Amadou Diallo strode briskly toward it, his tailored suit flapping in the breeze, a leather briefcase chained to his wrist. His face was pale but determined. The transfer had succeeded. The money was secured. In moments, he would disappear into the protection of foreign handlers. A voice crackled softly in Ibrahim's earpiece miles away at the Presidential Command Center. Sentinel-1, visual on target. Team in position. Awaiting green light. Ibrahim stood with arms crossed, staring at the satellite feed. Diallo's betrayal weighed heavy on him, heavier even than the coup. This was his brother. His confidant. And now, the man who had sold out an entire nation. He closed his eyes for a beat. The decision was agony. Then, firmly. Green light. No gunfire. Bring him back. The Sentinel operatives moved as one. Silent shadows emerged from the dunes. Two advanced on Diallo. One severed the chain from his wrist with a flick of a blade, the other snapped cold restraints onto his arms. Amadou barely had time to gasp. What? No, no. You can't. A black hood was pulled over his head. He was dragged away into the swirling dust as the jet engines screamed and then fell silent. 30 minutes later, Amadou Diallo knelt in the great hall of the presidential palace, shackled but alive. The weight of a betrayed revolution hung in the room like a tombstone. The door creaked open. Ibrahim entered slowly, alone, his footsteps echoing like gunshots against marble. His expression was carved from stone. They stared at each other. The silence stretched. Ibrahim spoke first. His voice was soft but cold as iron. Why? Amadou trembled. The defiance had drained away. You don't understand, Ibrahim, we were never going to win. The foreign powers, the corporations, they control everything. I had to survive. I offered you a way out too. We could have shared it. Ibrahim's fists clenched, but his voice stayed calm. You stole the hope of an entire people. You made me believe in brotherhood, and you turned it to ash. Amadou's head sagged. I did what I had to do. Ibrahim shook his head slowly. You did what cowards do. The heavy doors opened again. The nation's press, military officers, ministers, and civilians flooded into the hall. Cameras rolled. Microphones captured every breath. Ibrahim stepped to the podium. His voice rang out with the clarity of purpose only true conviction brings. We were betrayed by one of our own. Let the world see that even our closest brothers are held accountable, not by secret executions, not by hidden disappearances, but by law and justice. The crowd held its collective breath. The choice was his alone. I could have ordered his death. I did not. We are building something greater. Burkina Faso will stand on truth. He gestured to the guards. Take him to the People's Tribunal. Let justice be done. The hall erupted in thunderous applause and chants. Ibrahim! 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 As Amadou was led away, Ibrahim remained still at the podium, staring out at his people. His heart ached, but his resolve was unshaken. He had endured humiliation, treachery, and betrayal, and had still chosen principle over revenge. Later that night, alone again in his office, Ouattara entered quietly. You've won. You saved the country. Ibrahim stared out into the darkness. No. I've delayed its fall. For now. Ouattara frowned. You smile, but you speak of doom. Ibrahim gave that same faint, defiant smile, the one that had baffled his enemies from the first slap to the last betrayal. Because I know they will come again. They always do. Power never sleeps. Outside, the wind carried the distant sound of drums, of voices chanting into the night, of a people still willing to believe. Ibrahim watched the flicker of hope dance against the darkness and whispered to himself. Let them come.